Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer for Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's great to be with you today. Thank you for joining us. Remember, go to IG at Hondo Carpenter or on X, formerly known as Twitter, when you go to at Hondo Carpenter. I'm sorry, on IG, it's at Hondo SR. And go to si.com/NFL/Raiders, if you would, please, for all of our articles. It's great to have you. Remember, you can also find us on Spotify or on Apple if you don't want to watch, and I don't blame you, when you just look for Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. All right. Today, with the NFL draft fast approaching, we're going to begin looking at the draft in detail over the next, several weeks, several days, actually, but digging in on it and learning about it and taking a hard look. So I want to look at, for the Raiders, from 2015 to 2023. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Okay. So over those 9 seasons, they have had first rounds where they had picks in 8 of them. Okay. So remember, they gave up their first rounder for Davante Adams, which is a great trade. But we're looking at how they've drafted. So when you look at this, I want to go over. So in 2015, they take Amari Cooper. I consider that a hit, meaning it was a successful pick. Okay. They moved him, but it wasn't his fault. He was a successful pick. Now, an example of that, if I was judging the Lions and they picked Matthew Stafford and say, well, he didn't do much. It would have been a bust, but they traded him to LA and he won a Super Bowl. A playing Super Bowl, wasn't a backup. So I think they hit on Amari. 2016, they picked safety Carl Joseph. That was a fail. 2017, cornerback Gareon Conley, fail. 2018, Colton Miller, that's a hit. 2019, they had 3 first rounders. 3. Clelin Ferrell, it's not a hit. Now, had they picked him at a different spot, it would have been a hit. And it's not his fault where they picked him, but not a hit. Josh Jacobs, hit. Jonathan Abram, not a hit. Then you go to 2020, Damon Arnett, which I believe is a far more worse pick than Jamarcus Russell. Far worse pick than Jamarcus Russell. Just things I know from behind the scenes. Just a terrible pick on Damon Arnett. But Henry Ruggs, let's talk about Ruggs for a minute. Okay, he's not a hit. I'm not pretending that he was a hit. But when you look at him, where he got in, how he was performing when he got into his off-field issues, he was on his way to being better than Amari Cooper. And the frustrating part of Ruggs was that, unlike Damon Arnett, there were no warning signs. There were no warning signs at all. I'm telling y'all, from somebody that was very familiar with Ruggs, there were no warning signs on character or alcohol, none of it. Good kid. I'm talking about coming out of the draft. That's how you would have rated him. Just a good kid. So I'm going to call that an incomplete. Alex Leatherwood, not a hit. And then Tyree Wilson is too early. So when you look at this, they've had 11 picks, 3 that you would call hits, 1 inconclusive, talking about Ruggs, and the other, it's not inconclusive. We just don't know yet. So if you take Tyree out, they're hitting at 30% hits. If you want to give them Henry Ruggs, because he was on the road to that, then you go 40%. That's going to be up to you, the listener, on how you want to qualify that. The point is, in first rounders, you can't be that bad. even if you give them Ruggs, which is 4 of 10, you can't be that bad. First round draft picks are incredibly valuable. And so they have to be valued. Now, there are some teams like the Rams that don't have a problem trading draft picks. There are other general managers. Bobby Beathard, who's considered one of the best general managers of all time, was a guy that wasn't a big fan of rookies, so he would trade draft picks. That's fine too. But the point was, you look back at who did they get in return, and they hit with them. So I think you've got to look at this, and this is why there is so much attention on the NFL draft. This is why so much is put on there, because you can literally flip your franchise in just a couple of drafts. Just a couple of drafts, and you can flip it. And you can turn it and get it back on its feet. But the problem is you've got to have the ability to evaluate. And then you have to have the ability to understand value. Now, I'm going to go back. Ron Wolf, considered by many one of the greatest general managers in the history of the National Football League, was with the Raiders for a long time, cut his teeth, learned from Al Davis. But he was never going to get the GM job here. Al was here, and that makes sense. So he gets to the Packers via Atlanta, gets to the Packers. And he really liked Brett Favre. So he trades for Brett Favre. Brett Favre comes in for his physical, and he fails the physical. And Ron Wolf says to the doctors, I'm ordering you to pass him. Okay, it worked out for him. He believed in a guy. I mean, the commissioner of the NFL couldn't even get his name right. But Ron Wolf believed in that guy. So let's move that to present day Silver and Black Raiders. Okay. I'm going to use a couple of examples. Because when you screw up at quarterback or you screw up in the first round, your team is not going to be a championship team. So you're Tom Telesco. Okay. Let's just say that Jayden Daniels, you are convinced Jayden Daniels is a game changer. All right. So you know to be certain you're going to get him, you probably got to go to 1. 3 1s, 3 2s, but now it's not available. So then you go to Washington, which I'm told is not available. That in New England, I'm told this by multiple NFL people. They're really not available. Yeah, there's a lot of talk that they are, but they're not. It's going to be more of if somebody's willing to do something stupid. Well, okay. If you're Telesco and you believe in a guy, you're willing to do whatever it takes, but not be stupid, so you're not going to get those picks. So then you have to decide, okay, let's assume it was Jayden Daniels. Okay, you're not going to get him. Is there another guy that you think has that value of a first-round pick? Now, I've said this multiple times. People that I trust who are the best quarterback drafters have told me with Penix's injuries, they've got him as a third rounder. Without the injuries, they told me clear first rounder, maybe even first overall, but clear first rounder. Okay. Now I'm telling you all this because I want you to understand angles. Just like in tackle, angles are big. So are angles in processing of information. So the best drafters and some of the most successful GMs and executives tell me I'm not touching Penix before the third. Huge upside, but a massive risk. And in getting it wrong in the first round, if you stay at 13, is just huge. Okay, Bo Nix. Most guys that I talk to who are good NFL quarterback drafters tell me they've got Most of them have a third round grade on Nix. A couple of them have a mid to second round grade. Okay, these are proven drafters, guys who make the decision. All right. So you want a quarterback. All right. If you know that Caleb, Jaden, and JJ are out, do you go up and get Drake May? A lot of people think he's going in the top 5. Okay, well, if you're not convinced it's Drake May, okay, then you wait at 13. Do you make a risk with Nix or Penix? Now, remember, we're talking about angles here. If you're Telesco and you believe in that guy, you don't give a crap what anybody else thinks. And he shouldn't. He shouldn't. You go nab him. And you take Nix or you take Penix. But you understand, if you don't hit, you have just, your hunch has proven to be wrong, and it's going to cost you your job. You're going to be gone. And then you're never going to get another general manager's job in the NFL again. If Telesco gets fired, he won't get a third. Here's where I'm going with this. You have a ton of you emailing me asking me, would you be critical if the Raiders took Penix? Of course not. I wouldn't be critical if they took whomever. I didn't think the Alex Leatherwood pick was a pick I would have made. I know for a fact New England was trying to get up to get Leatherwood. They liked him. They liked him. And they were going to take him. So, and I reported at the time there were teams that wanted him. Okay. Wasn't a fan of the Leatherwood pick, but I still reported on it before the draft because I'd heard that was going. My opinion doesn't matter. See, this is the thing that a lot of people don't necessarily get. Your opinion, in my opinion, is completely irrelevant. The proof of the pudding's in the eating. And so we're going to find out. The only opinion that matters is Davis, Telesco, and Pierce. And Telesco's got the final say on draft day. So if he's sitting there and he's like, listen, guys, I know you like Penix. Great kid, but I'm not willing to take the risk at 13. Okay. Okay. And if Penix pans out, then the people that were believers, and I'm not saying that this is how it's going down inside the building. I'm just using, I'm expressing angles to you. Then say, okay, I'm not going to trust you. This is where, when you look at the Raiders and you can say a 40% hit rate if you give them Ruggs. And Ruggs, his first year wasn't a hit. In his second year, he certainly was significantly better. Significantly. But you only really have a half a year to give him that. That's why I have him as an inconclusive. So if you look at 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, it's horrible. You want to be hitting 70, 80% on your first round picks. That's why Bobby Beathard used to say, if I'm not sure of a guy, I'm going to trade my first rounder for somebody I am sure of. Now, you don't get the benefits of the 5th-year option unless you go trade for a guy that has that. But the point is, you understand. Sorry, I had to look at something popped up on my computer. You have to look at and understand how things work. You got to watch those angles. And so right now, sitting up there in Henderson is Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco. They know what their draft board looks like. Again, medical or maybe some off-field issues could change it now, but the board is pretty much set. So now they're up there looking, okay, who's available? What's my cost? What's the value? And at some point, Telesco's got to look at Pierce, and Pierce has got to look at Telesco and say, if we do this, is this worth our job? Are we willing to risk it all? I always laugh living in Vegas. You see this a lot when you'll see somebody playing one of the games. Maybe it's blackjack, okay? And everyone starts to stand around them because they're winning. And you'll hear people say, double down, do this, bet more. Well, it's easy when you're betting with other people's money. And listen, I understand when you're a fan, you're betting with your money, tickets, merchandise, hotels, airplane, food. I get all of that. I'm not saying that you're not vested in it. But you're looking at people who are making decisions saying, okay, what's my strategy here? What guy am I convinced on? I got to have that guy. That's guy. Years ago, the brain trust at the Bears, one of the worst drafting teams in the NFL. We'll get into that more in the coming days. But one of the worst drafting teams in the NFL moved all in on Mitch Trubisky. Okay. And I remember being asked at the time for my analysis of what I thought of the pick. I said, my opinion doesn't matter. If Trubisky hits, it was a great pick. If he doesn't, they're unemployed. And they're unemployed. No longer running the Bears. Okay, now, the people I trust are telling me Caleb Williams, the most talent in the NFL in this draft, and the most red flags. By far the most red flags. I had, again, one general manager tell me, I'm not going to let him anywhere near my team. I said to him, what? You wouldn't take him in the second or third round? He goes, hell no. Those are his words. Because I wouldn't take him as a UDFA. He goes, because with all that talent, people are going to be screaming for him. And with all those red flags, he's a bust. I said, well, okay. He goes, and then he said, I'm not rooting against the kid. He goes, every once in a while, one of them like him pans out. He goes, but it is long shot. And he said, I'm not rooting against him. I'm just not willing to risk my job. Now, missing on him wouldn't cost him his job, but he goes, I'm not willing to risk my job on that guy. I'm looking for guys that I know are going to produce, be there, and be stable. So this is why it's so important now. I mean, you look at all these drafts I just read to you, it's multiple GMs. The Raiders have had no consistency, no stability. This is why when people ask me, what is the most important thing that you want for the Raiders to get in this draft? I'll tell you exactly what it is: stability. They can't keep changing coaches and changing general managers and changing leadership and vision and plan. I mean, you go get guys who run X offense, and now you're running this offense, and 2 years later, you're running this offense, and you've got a hodgepodge of parts. No, you can't do that. Listen, I know in Raider Nation, you are not the biggest fans of Kansas City. You're not the biggest fans of Pittsburgh, even Dallas. But what do all those franchises have? They're all good drafters, and give the Dallas credit whether you want to or not. In the first round, they're good drafters. But they have stability. They have stability. Now, in Dallas, I think the owner costs them wins based on decisions with free agents and other stuff. But we're talking about drafting here. Stability. You get a vision, one people, one mind walking in the same direction. Again, it's just staying on focus. It's understanding the value of the draft. It's understanding the propensity of the draft and developing a systemology that makes the draft a place where you can flip it and turn it and go. Flip, turn, go. And that's why the draft is so vitally important. It is easy for a journalist to blog or to write a story. You should take this guy. Okay, that's easy to do. And I do it, and it's easy. It's not easy when you're in Telesco's chair. It's not easy when you are sitting there in Antonio Pierce's chair? Those are all things that you need to go into consideration. I had one general manager tell me the first rounder is for those you want to marry. And I go, what? He said, here's my point. He goes, when you're out there and you're just dating and you're not looking for a wife, you'll date a bunch of different girls. He goes, but when you begin to think, okay, it's time for me to settle down, you're looking for a certain type of lady, a wife. He said, that person, I'm willing to trust them with my life and to spend the rest of my life with them. He goes, first rounders, you don't take, ooh, shiny object. Woo, she's awful pretty. Yeah, there's some concerns, but she's pretty. No. He goes, you look for the one that's the total package. And he said, that's the same way with first rounders. I look for the ones least risk. It may not be sexy, but this guy's going to play on my team for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. He's going to get a second contract. That's the guy I'm looking for. Because I want the guy with the least risk. And oh, by the way, the gentleman who told me that has Super Bowls. And that's the way they look at it. It's the way they analyze it. So I got to take the guy that I know because it's too valuable of a pick. Years ago, I remember a friend of mine, really liked a particular car. It was a new car from a new company. I don't remember why he liked the car, but I think it was called the Daewoo or a Daewoo. But for whatever reason, he liked the car. He was a buddy of mine, and his dad told him, listen, new company, new car. You may like it because it looks sharp and it's cheap because it's a new company, but son, go get yourself, and told him what car to go get. He goes, but Dad, that's not really a sexy first car. He goes, you're right. But that company's going to be there in 5 years when you need parts. The warranty's going to be good because it's still a company that's a good car. So my friend went with a reliable car. And I don't even know how long ago this had to be 25 years ago, maybe. Now, I have no idea if Daewoo or Daewoo is even still selling cars. I haven't seen them, so I don't know that. But guess what? The car that he bought, he drove it for like 8 years, then gave it to his sister. Well, sold it to his sister, who, when she got done driving it, sold it to his little brother. And that company's still in business. Why? No risk. Now, I don't even know if Daewoo is around. That's how people look at the first round. Now, there are other people that come around and say, no, high risk, high reward. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. That's a different philosophy that sometimes hits. See, I'm not offering to you which side is right. I'm offering you all the sides, and you can decide what's your philosophy. It's yours. What do you think? Are you a high risk, high reward person? Are you no, the higher the pick, the more careful I'm going to be. I want the guys that are going to make it and play. And then maybe in free agency, go spend a little bit more for some proven guys, some playmakers. There's no right or wrong. It's my job to present you all the angles. I want to read you a couple of emails. This comes to us from Regina V. Regina says, Hondo, all offseason, you've talked about the Raiders drafting a quarterback, signing a veteran, going into camp with Aiden as the first pick. Then yesterday, you tweet out articles making the case for Gardner Minshew. I feel like you cheated on us. Regina V. Okay, Regina, my job as a journalist is to present to you every angle of something. Gardner Minshew's on the roster, so there's a case to be made for him being your starter. Just like yesterday we wrote an article, there's the case for Aiden. It's Antonio Pierce's decision to make the call, or Tom Telesco in the draft. Who do you want? It's not Hondo's job to be a cheerleader for anybody. I'll give you an example. Okay, I got a bottle of water here. I don't know if it's showing up. An Aquafina bottle of water. So if I were to ask you to describe this bottle to me, you would tell me what you can see. But I'm looking at the backside. So if I described it, we would have two different descriptions of the same thing. And so it wouldn't be that either one of us is wrong. It would be that we're looking at something from a different angle. There's a movie called Dead Poets Society. If you've not seen it with Robin Williams, I suggest all of you go rent it. But he's a teacher, a professor, and there's a moment in the movie where he asks the kids in his classroom to describe the classroom. And then he invites them to come stand on his desk and describe the classroom. You know, I think America would be a better place if all of us understood sometimes people see things from a different angle. Sometimes we look at things from a different angle. Now, does it mean that your point of view is right or wrong, or mine is right or wrong? Sometimes a different angle doesn't change what something is. You can describe that bottle of Aquafina, but it's still a bottle of Aquafina. This is why in the NFL draft, you cannot afford to miss. A miss in the first round sets teams back immensely. I asked an NFL general manager the other night, how much of an impact does a miss in the first round cost? And then they brought up Trey Lance and Brock Purdy and said, well, Trey Lance didn't hurt them because they already had a ton of talent. So they made up for it with Brock Purdy, because you never expect a last round guy to make it anyways. Your goal with the 6th and 7th round is make the practice squad. He said, so in that case, it didn't matter. But if you're a team that's building that doesn't have a lot of talent and you miss, he goes, I think it sent you back a year, which I thought was very high. He goes, so when you look at a team like a Raiders, and I had shared with him what I shared with you, if you count Ruggs, they've hit 4 out of 10. If you don't, it's 3 out of 10. Because that's why they always seem to be a year or two away. And he goes, but Telesco hits now. And they take a team that was 1 game out last year. Then you watch Tyree come along. He goes, that team probably gets in the playoffs next year. And then they hit the next year. Bam, now they're a team that's in the playoff 2 years in a row, looking to get to the second round. Goes 3 years in a row, then all of a sudden you're looking at competing, to win an AFC West. I think that they would compete earlier. I'm just giving you his information. But again, understanding the value of the draft. So I'm just giving you this information because it's important for you to understand. It's important for you to understand, gather, and get where the Raiders are at. It isn't just go get a quarterback. It isn't just go get one. It's, is the right one there? Is the right one there? Is this the one we ride with? Is this the one that can get us there? If you're not sure, you don't pick them at 13. But if you are, it doesn't matter how many good drafting GMs say, don't do it. You pull the trigger. All a matter of perspective. It's all a matter of perspective. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow. Got a lot more draft stuff coming that I think will be a blessing to you.